Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Hank Stopinski. I'm the Superintendent of Schools here at the Royalton Heartland Central School District. And first of all, I'd like to thank all of those who are watching this afternoon. This is the first of 3 parent meetings. Over 100 questions were shared with me prior to the meeting. May not have all the answers to all of the questions, but I'll share the most current information that we have and use the unanswered questions as part of our next phase in preparing to open schools. Please know that this is a very fluid situation. Safety of our students and staff are our primary concern. Each model and solution has its positives and negatives, and our decisions moving forward will need to take into consideration the needs of our students, staff, families, and more. So this afternoon, my intention is to break up the presentation down into 3 sections. We'll first begin by talking about student safety. We'll then move on to ancillary services and finish the conversation today with teaching and learning. If you've not done so already, please feel free to click on the link at the top of this video for submitting questions. In the event that I'm unable to respond to your questions during this session, I will attempt to respond later today at 6 p.m. or tomorrow, Tuesday morning at 8:30 a.m. Immediately following today's presentation, a link with the recording will be posted to the district website for others to see. So let's begin by having a little bit of conversation around safety and sanitation. First, we received several questions about testing and contact tracing. And let me explain what the process here within the district is. Over the course of the last month, we've been working very closely with the other school districts within Niagara County and the Niagara County Department of Health. And to be clear, it's the Department of Health's responsibility to be doing all testing and contact tracing. The district does not have any lead role in either of those functions. With that said, once a person is identified within the district as being COVID positive, we will work closely with the Department of Health in cooperation to make certain that people are informed as we are directed by the Department of Health. So, some of the questions were asked. What is the threshold number of COVID cases or exposures that will trigger a transition to an all-remote learning? It's difficult to say that how many cases would have to be identified. We would be working very, very closely with the Department of Health, and if we felt that the pandemic levels and the exposure rates exceeded, right now the governor's target's about 9%. I'm not exactly certain that's the number that we'll be using, but we're taking our guidance from the Department of Health. Will COVID testing be required before school begins, as they're doing in college? No, we will not be requiring any COVID tests to be taking place here in Roy-Hart. What's the plan for testing teachers and staff? Everyone is welcome to have a COVID test in one of the 8 locations in Niagara County. If you're interested in those sites, you're welcome to go visit Niagara County, and they'll tell you exactly where you can go to get those tests. There is no plan for us to test students and teachers. In the event someone has a temperature over 100 degrees, has been exposed with someone that has been infected with COVID, or has traveled to one of the designated states across this country, then what will happen is that they will need to be out of school for 14 days. Or they can see a physician and have a COVID test that says negative, then they'll be able to return. In the event a classmate teacher is positive, will the whole class need to be quarantined? That'll be based upon what the contact tracing tells us. The research suggests that the COVID testing will be focusing, or excuse me, the contact tracing will focus on those individuals that someone is living with or driving with or has sustained contact of over 10 to 15 minutes. That's the guidelines that you'll see from the Department of Health. If you're interested in those guidelines, feel free to go to our website and look at the guidance document that's been posted under our reentry plan. Will a note be required by a doctor if a child is out sick for any reason or shows symptoms that may or may not be COVID related? Once again, we'll be asking for any student or staff member that is asked to leave school with any symptoms to see their physician. And then in order to return, the current guidance document is that they need to be COVID negative or spend 14 days in a remote learning situation. There's a rumor going around on Facebook as to a teacher has a concern about a student having the virus. They are going to keep our kids away from us, and we will not be able to pick them up from school. I'm not certain what that rumor is and how far it goes, but in the event that someone is showing symptoms or is not feeling well with a temperature of over 100 degrees, we have designated isolation rooms in each of our buildings. The students will be asked to stay in those isolation rooms and or a staff member, and then parents will immediately be called to take their student out. Once the student has left the building, we'll go through a comprehensive sanitation of that space in the event that we have another individual that may be showing symptoms. My concern is that no school should be able to keep someone's child. Okay, we got that one. We're going to be looking at symptoms that a year ago today may have been a cold or a flu that ran a temperature, but unfortunately we're not going to be able to treat that anything but a positive COVID test until we have further testing available to us. Okay. What's the plan for the process of notifying parents of a confirmed COVID exposure to the school? Again, we'll be following the Department of Health guidelines. I would anticipate that we'll be communicating with families similar to what we would do if we had a pink eye or a headlights kind of situation once we get the guidance from the Department of Health. There are several laws and HIPAA regulations that do not allow us to disclose if a staff member or a student has the COVID positive test, but those instructions can come from the families and Department of Health, would not be broadcast, but those folks that would have been in contact, they'll be notified by the Department of Health. Okay. All right. Will random testing be conducted? No, there will be no random testing taking place within our school district. Okay, I think I've answered that question. With the new non-invasive saliva or spit test becoming available, will we use it in our district for random testing for all grades and staff? Test results in 24 hours. It's about 90% accurate as the other tests. I just learned about this test this morning. I have to get some more information, but my understanding is that the saliva test will not only assist with the COVID, but can also identify other flu strains and viruses. Unfortunately, these tests are only being piloted at the current time in their hospital situations. It'd be wonderful for us to have it available at the school, but unfortunately right now the testing is not available to the school districts. Okay. What is the number of positive cases reported in school before you close the school and go fully virtual? Again, we're going to need to be able to get that information from the Department of Health. It's likely that there'll be positive cases within the district in families or potentially some students here. But that does not necessarily mean that we close the entire district or an entire school building. It's all going to be dependent upon what the Department of Health tells us with their contact tracing and who may have been exposed. If a teacher tests positive for COVID-19, are they required to quarantine for 2 to 3 weeks? Is their sick leave covered or paid? There's several guidelines for the COVID testing and for staff members that may be out of work, and they are entitled to pay while they are on leave as part of those pieces of legislation. Okay, so the next questions were around facilities. And a couple of questions. Will Wednesday in between groups be used for disinfecting? Deep cleaning and disinfecting will take place every day after school. On Wednesdays, in addition to our teachers doing remote learning, both in a synchronous, which is real-time, and asynchronous model, we will be doing additional cleaning and sanitation of spaces throughout the schools. Please be reassured that every single day, immediately following school, we'll begin the disinfecting process of all hard surfaces, bathrooms, water fountains, and cafeterias. In the high school, how are the desks being cleaned after each class? There'll be a combination of cleaning that'll be taking place by our custodial staff, by our cleaners, and then in some cases the students or teachers may be also following through for specific pieces, but it is the responsibility of our cleaning staff, which will be increasing during the day hours from some of our evening shifts to make sure that those cleaning of those common spaces and classrooms can take place. Will the rooms and desks be cleaned if they have to change classrooms? Yes, it's our anticipation that we will be cleaning on a regular basis throughout the course of the day. If Wednesday is going to be a school cleaning day, does that mean there will be lighter cleaning done on Monday and Thursday? No, that's not necessarily true. We'll be making certain that all spaces throughout the buildings will be done. Those common touch surfaces during the day, such as bathrooms and door handles and sinks and cafeterias, copy rooms, those areas will be sanitized multiple times throughout the course of the day. Okay, the next topic that we had was around temperature checks. So the protocols that we are currently looking to put in place here at the district will begin with families taking responsibilities to take their children's temperature and also doing a wellness check each and every day. We're in the process right now of exploring the implementation of an app that will allow for families to click on the app and in a matter of about 30 seconds be able to log in the child's name, check their wellness, check their temperatures, and log that into the school. That will automatically be uploaded to the administration and nursing staff each of our buildings. And we recognize that some parents may not be vigilant, maybe a little forgetful sometimes. So what we'll be doing, and we've just ordered these, they're sensors that will take the body temperatures of students as they walk into the school building. Our intention right now is to be able to capture students as they walk through the doors and do a thermal scan, which will let us know any child above 100 degrees, at which time we'll then pull them aside and do a second check with a non-touch thermometer. We also plan on using those body scans at the middle part of the day as students are approaching for lunch to make certain that there's no change in body temperature. In the event that we need to do further checks, what we'll do is utilize our non-touch thermometers with our nursing staff and trained monitors in the building. So what do we do if someone forgets to log in their temperatures for multiple days? Well, those will be monitored each and every day. If a child's missed their home thermometer check, we'll then make sure we go and see them individually during the early part of the morning. And then if we see multiple days, we'll be in contact with school administration and the families to make certain that those checks are taken care of. Again, more information to come on that process. Okay. Some of the questions here, what do we do if there's non-conforming, not completing the online checks? Administration will follow up on that. There will be temperature checks and redundant checks taking place. I think I've answered many of these questions. What symptoms other than fever, cough, and SOB will be required for a child to either not attend or be sent home? If we start to see any of the COVID symptoms as diagnosed by our nurses initially here, the child will be sent home as a precautionary measure. If a family has multiple children attending school and one child is sent home, do all the children have to remain home? That will not be the case if the childs are not symptomatic, unless we hear from the doctors or the County of Niagara to let us know that we should be sending those students home. Okay, sorry, several questions about taking the temperatures at home. If I had to take her temp on school days, would there be a hard time calling in the information to the school? Our intention is to make this as seamless as possible, logging into the app, as I mentioned, to log in your body temperature. Why can't there be an employee on the bus taking kids' temperatures before they get onto the school bus? Unfortunately, the school bus drivers and transportation folks are not allowed to be taking temperatures, and we have about 18 school buses that are running first thing in the morning. So you can imagine putting a monitor and a person on there full time to do body temperatures is probably not a cost-effective way of taking care of the body temperatures. Okay, next one, masks. students in masks. Masks are required to be worn by our students on the school bus as they're passing through the hallways and to be in the classrooms that are 6 feet apart. We're currently exploring the possibility of having students work behind plastic barriers. Unfortunately, the plastic shields are not allowed unless those plastic shields are also connected tightly around the neck with fabric. We've had several questions about masks and students needing to see the lips of their teachers and teachers seeing their lips. We have ordered plastic shields and specialized things for our speech therapists, also some barriers for them also. We're currently exploring individual shields at student desks that will allow for them to have mask breaks while they're in classroom, as long as they stay within those protective barriers. We're trying to get a ruling at this time from the Department of Health whether or not those will be allowable within our schools. We are aware that other school districts have put up some barriers, and that seems to have been okay. We're exploring that as we speak. How will children take breaks without masks on safely? We're working on designated spaces and opportunities for students to go outside to get mask breaks and to be able to take those off. As you can imagine, trying to wear these all day long is going to be a challenge for us. We know that young children have adapted very, very well in the public spaces of our restaurants and our grocery stores and public places. We're going to need to make sure that we can maintain that same level of consciousness in our schools. Are there criterion for masks, and can kids wear homemade masks to school? The recommendation from the CDC and from the school district is to make certain that all masks are at least 2-ply and are fitted correctly so that the mask covers the nose and the mouth very tightly. Those masks, those windsocks that get pulled up that are very thin, a bandana that are single-ply cotton are not recommended. They do not provide the barrier and the protection that we'd like to see. The I-95 masks, the surgical masks, are something that, again, the higher the number, the higher rating, the better the safety for the child. The district is prepared to provide surgical masks for all the students that need them, and we will have backup supplies in the school. We will also ask that families please work with your children to make sure that the masks are clean on a regular basis and kept sanitary. Okay, we talked a little bit about facial expressions. I talked about the types of masks. Again, we're waiting for further clarification. We recognize the challenges that masks will be faced with. Again, we've got to make certain that we're meeting the expectations and the safety of all of our students. So PPE questions. There was a question from one of our parents that suggested that when they came during the shutdown, that they observed some teachers not wearing masks. Some had them hanging from their ears under their chins, maybe not practicing social distancing. I apologize if that was the case. Please know that its district is very serious about these rules and expectations. With our staff over the course of the summer months, if they cannot maintain 6-foot distancing in their work, they are required to wear masks. And we'll have the same expectation for our teachers and our staff as they return back to school. In order for us to keep our schools open, everyone in the community must abide by the masks, the distancing, hand washing, and sanitation. It's essential that we are all in this together. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next set of topics here. Food service and beverages. There were several questions about where students will be able to eat. We believe at this point in the blended model and the spacing that we've been able to create in our cafeterias that every child will be allowed to eat in the cafeteria and be able to take their masks off once they've arrived and have sat down. Again, maintaining that 6-foot spacing as a minimum is what our target is. And students will be able to continue to purchase their lunch at school. There's going to be no prohibition on that. The students will eat lunch in their cafeterias as well, as I had just mentioned. In the event that we have any particular lunch that may not be able to meet the 6-foot requirement, we have contingency plans to be able to have students eat in other remote locations. The eating lunch in the cafeteria will take place at the elementary, middle, and high schools as well. And can students have water bottles in school to avoid drinking fountain use? Yes. We have put water bottle fillers in each of the schools. Those are investments that we've just made. We will be encouraging all families to bring with them a water bottle for their children. And at one point, they were prohibited without a note at the middle school. That has been waived. So any child at the middle school or any other building within the district are welcome to bring water bottles. There were a couple of questions here about supplies. And there was a question of why were the general supply lists updated? Well, they were updated primarily because of the change to the blended model and the prohibition of students sharing their personal items with others. So we used to have a lot of students sharing containers full of supplies and materials during their activities. We're doing our best right now to be able to have self-contained baskets of pens, pencils, erasers, and those types of items for our students to be able to utilize and maintain the distancing and the sanitation. There was another question that asked how could we support teachers that might need extra supplies, asked whether or not we could set up something on Amazon so that the community could help purchase items for our teachers and for the classrooms. That's a wonderful suggestion and something that we'll be looking to in the near future. Look toward your building principals who may be sharing some additional information. Excuse me. There was a question, I believe, on student transportation. So how will distance work on our school buses? Our intention is to have our students wear masks on the school buses to maintain 6-foot spacing. Unless they're with a family member, then they can be teaching side by side. Our loading procedures will have our students arrive, and when they get on the bus, the first participants on the bus, the travelers, will go to the back of the bus, and then we'll load it from the back towards the front. And then when we unload, we're going to unload from the front to the back to avoid as much face-to-face contact in transition as possible. For parents dropping kids off at the high school, do we all just show up at 7:30? What's the plan? We'll be getting some more detailed information regarding transportation schedules and bus drop-off and locations in the very near future. We're working right now to try to balance the bus drop-offs to try to spread students out so that we don't have a single point of entrance. How will drop-off of students be conducted? Again, we'll have more information coming for parents that are dropping off the students in the very near future. Look for that information probably in about 2 weeks, just before school starts. The other thing I'll make mention of the transportation is that the use and the carrying of hand sanitizer on school buses are prohibited. If you wish for your students to have hand sanitizer in addition to what we have in the schools, we have about 50 hand sanitizers that were installed this summer that we'll be providing for students. If you want them to have hand sanitizers, then we're going to ask that you please drop those off at school and designate them to the students. They are not to be transported on the school bus. It's been found to be an explosive hazard and not allowed on our school buses. Okay. And then perhaps some of the things that you're most interested in is what does the instruction look like at our school and what's happening here. So let me go through best I can to try to respond to as many questions as possible regarding teaching and learning. The first question is around high-risk individuals and being in a remote learning situation. There were some challenges that we all faced last spring. We all did the best that we could. There were questions about compliance, enforcement, follow-up. It's important to share that now that we know what we're getting into with our full-time remote students, that there's going to be a high level of accountability. There'll be daily check-ins, daily attendance, deadlines, and we'll be grading all the assignments for our students through the course of the school year. Will kids be returning to 5 days a week in-class instruction at all this year? Our intention is to try and bring our students back to 5 days a week instruction when we can do so safely and efficiently for our students and for our staff. There's really no way for us to know exactly when that's going to take place. We're going to continually reevaluating where we're at. Right now, any family member that's looking to a remote option, we're going to ask that you please make that commitment for the first semester. By knowing the number of students that are taking remote instruction and knowing any of our staff that may need accommodations because of any conditions they may have, we'll be able to balance out our learning schedules. Next question is there going to be Chromebook and equipment pickup prior to the first day of school? No dates have been established as of yet, but the students that will be learning remotely will have their equipment picked up prior to the first day of school. Keep your eyes open on the websites and communication coming from your building principals on that. Are we going to have a high school schedule in advance so they know what teachers to check in with? Have the elementary teachers been assigned? Again, this is a very fluid situation that we're facing right now. We are still receiving requests for remote learning. We're taking a look at how many students are looking for remote learning at each grade level. Once we have the determination of that and whether or not we are at full staff, we'll then make the determination of master schedules. Expect you'll be seeing that sometime the 3rd or 4th week of August. Is the elementary on the same schedule as the middle school and high school, or are they every day? The only students that will be attending school 4 days a week will be our 1211 special education students, and our students at the BOCES Center will be allowed to be able to attend 5 days a week, and we'll be talking about those in a few moments. Will they have to keep their stuff in backpacks instead of lockers? Students at the middle school will carry a backpack. There won't be any lockers available to them. There will be lockers assigned to high school students that are going to be socially distanced and spaced, but they'll be discouraged from being used. We're going to be encouraging our students to carry their items with them as much as possible. Overall, I'm very worried about my daughter. She has bad panic attacks and other issues. I want to know how it will be handled if she has one of those in school. Our counselors, our teachers are all being prepared. We know that our students have had a bunch of disruption in their lives over the course of the last several months. We'll be watching out for each and every one of them. If you've got a specific concern regarding your child, I encourage you to reach out to the building principal, let them know about that so we can make sure the counselors are on alert. How will the kids in the hallways stay far enough apart? Students will be encouraged to keep themselves socially distanced. Masks will be required. And one of the questions that we asked the county commissioner about contact tracing was, when do you have to would you have to go do a contact tracing for children that pass each other in the hallways? The response was no. That what they're looking for is students that have sustained time, 10 to 15 minutes is what they're typically looking at, in close proximity to someone that would have been infected. And close proximity is typically less than 6 feet. So walking down the hallway for an intermittent pass, as long as the masks are, it will be no different than when you're walking down a park path or a trail or in the supermarket. Will there be an orientation for children entering high school or available times for them to tour the buildings? Each of the building principals will be reaching out to students that are new to the school, whether that's our 8th graders that have risen to the 9th grade, our 4th graders to 5th grade, our kindergartners. All those groups will be reached out to by their school principals to make sure that their transition runs smooth. Excuse me. Why aren't these kids returning to school 5 days a week when other nearby school districts are? Each school district's a little bit different. We have to make sure that we can accommodate students in our classrooms with the appropriate square footage. Right now, we need approximately 36 square feet per child in our elementary and middle school and high school. That's the 6x6 spacing. And many of our classrooms, if not most of them, at the elementary and middle school are less than 500 square feet. So it's realistically not practical for us to be able to place the students and maintain appropriate distancing. Some other school districts have abandoned buildings, they have space, they have staffing, they've made decisions to move people around. Unfortunately, we're unable to do that in Roy-Hart at this time. Our hope is to bring back students 5 days a week and try to get back to as normal a schedule as possible, but we can only do that once we know that our staff and our students are safe. Will students be receiving AIS services? If so, how? In person, pull out, push in, or via Google Meet? Yes, all those areas will be met. If the child's in the building in our blended model, they'll be meeting in person. Our teachers, our support staff, our special educators, our counselors, our specialists will all be reaching out to the students on a regular basis based on what their needs are. Will classes be allowed time to use the playground? Is the playground use encouraged across all grade levels? Our playgrounds will be encouraged at our elementary school. Unfortunately, our middle school students, the proximity of the playground is not in such a place where we'll be able to utilize the playground for recess, but we do encourage our students to get outside, utilize the fields and the athletic courses. The new tennis courts, for example, at the middle school have pickleball. We hope to get students involved in that, and we've been planning a series of outdoor activities to make sure our students can get outside, get the fresh air, and get their exercise. Will there be any change in the schedule in the weeks when students are missing a day due to holidays, Indigenous People Day, Veteran Day, etc.? Well, we'll be following the instructional calendar. We are required to meet 180 days of student instruction over the course of the school year. Are we still trying to still meet all curriculum requirements or prioritizing at this point? Our intention is to focus our time on the core power standards. Those items that are deemed most essential to our learning will take priority. It's not to say that we won't be doing other activities and exploration. We want our students to be able to be engaged and interested in what they're doing. But our teachers will be working and have been working over the course of the summer, making certain that those core standards that are required and measured by the state of New York are taken care of. Are there still honors accelerated classes for the sophomores? I believe that to be the case, yes. What is the stress going to do to our teachers? How does it affect their health and well-being? How does it affect their ability to teach? How does it affect the quality of education they're able to provide? What is it going to do to our kids? And the questions go on and on. Our students, our staff, our parents, our children, grandparents, the entire community has felt stress over the COVID-19 pandemic. There's no doubt about that. We're working very hard as a school district to support our educators across the board as we are supporting our students that are in the school. We also hope to prepare some information and resources for our community to be able to try to manage the stress levels that we're all under. And I encourage you all to take a look at the guidelines and the resources that are being presented to you over the course of the next several weeks. Will there be multiple sources available with photos of the school not following CDC guidelines, like the daisy chain and the yearbook pickup? How can we be sure teachers will actually enforce rules about masks and distancing when they didn't at the daisy chain until prompted by a parent? Again, I encourage everyone to be responsible to following the social distancing and the masks. We will be diligent and work with our staff to make sure that they too are following through on the protocols. I can't say that it's going to happen 100% of the time, but when we're aware of what the situations are where people are not following our protocols and procedures, I promise you that the administration will take action. Several questions on special education. What will happen with IEPs if students stay at home for the first part and do distance learning? Our district is responsible and will ensure that all students with disabilities have access to their IEP programs. It's very, very important. Services, accommodations to the greatest extent possible. And we've already been working with our specialists to make sure that they're prepared to meet those needs. If a child has an IEP where they're supposed to get one-on-one help 5 days per week, how would these IEPs be followed when the child is only in school 2 days a week? I am worried children who are already behind but don't require 12-1-1 classrooms will only fall further behind, only going to school 2 days a week. So to be clear, our federal and state guidelines allow for maximum flexibility during this pandemic. Consultant teaching and resource rooms are the district's most frequent programs that we implement on a daily basis. They involve special education teachers for students with IEPs. During Wednesdays and other non-in-person days, students receiving consultant teaching and other resource rooms will have scheduled times to meet with their assigned special education teachers. Depending on the student needs and the staff availability, this may look different than from each student to another. So each student has a very specialized, individualized education plan, and we're going to make sure that we meet the requirements of each of those. I have concerns that my child has an IEP, and how are things such as occupational therapy going to happen? What if I don't believe that 3 days of online learning and 2 days in class is the best method for my child? Do we have an option for sending our child 5 days a week? My child is already struggling, and I am very concerned that she will fall even further behind with the hybrid model. This is a real common question that we're getting from many of our parents, for not only for our students with disabilities, for our gen ed students as well. And at this time, we're not able to be able to support a 5-day in-class learning model for our special educators or any student for that matter. We're offering 4 days a week, in-person preparation for 2 days a week, and then the remote location, except for the 12-1-1, which we are able to provide a 4-day week services. We're hoping over time that we'll be able to offer 4-day services and eventually full services once we can ensure the safety of our students and our staff. Related services will be offered remotely as well. Occupational therapy, physical therapy, and other services. Speech will be continuing to be provided for each of the students that need them. If your child is struggling and you don't feel as if the check-ins are taking place on a regular basis, again, please reach out to your school principal, who will follow up and make certain and check in. As I had mentioned, it is our intention to have daily check-ins and students filling out a brief survey as part of their coursework to let us know where they are, how they're feeling. Our special educators, our regular ed teachers will be doing daily contact with our students and making sure that things are logged and taken care of. We're hoping that we don't allow any child to fall through the cracks. It's something that's very important to us. Okay. There's a question, will masks be required while students are in speech therapy? How will IEP plans be kept? Will therapists still be working with our children? So in-person speech and language skills, that we are mandating social distancing and face coverings with appropriate breaks, be followed throughout the course of the day. But we do understand in some therapy cases that we do need to, the therapists will need to be see each other's mouth, the child's and the teacher's, and we're creating appropriate barriers and protections for those situations. You'll have more information that will be followed up from your specialists working with your children. We're also working on other alternatives. There are some masks that are being produced right now that are see-through covers on them. Folks that are concerned that their child, you may wish to order some for yourself. If not, the district will be providing those types of protective barriers. Speech therapy will be provided remotely. Services will be going on a regular basis to make sure that we quickly respond to any needs or concerns. Okay. We talked about resource rooms, that they have those in their IEPs. We're going to make certain that the Google Meets take place in what's called synchronous or real time with their special education teachers, and then also have remote services throughout the course of the week. Okay, so next section on remote questions. What happens in January as kids come back? And as we begin to approach the semester break, our hope is that we'll be able to welcome back our students, and families will have the choice to either reintroduce them back into the blended model or remain on a remote model. A lot can happen between now and January, and we'll be monitoring the data to make sure that we make the best decision for the school district and for your children. Will, in quotations, unreliable Schoology be dropped? Schoology is one of our platforms that we're going to be utilizing, as well as Google Classroom and Class Dojo at the elementary school. These are reliable and dependable and being utilized across the region for our students. How will seniors be affected if they choose long-distance learning? Our seniors will go through the model. I have two sons that are in college that are in almost 100% digital programming right now. In fact, one is, and one is nearly almost 100% digital. They will adapt. It's a good transition for them. We will make certain that they get the services that they need. And again, the distance learning is unfortunate because we do want to have our students together. And our seniors this past year missed out on a great deal between March and June that are typically fun times for our students to enjoy their prom and their spring sports and the graduation ceremonies and so forth. We're going to do everything in our power to make sure that our seniors have a positive experience and to replicate as much as we possibly can. My daughter is a senior taking college classes. If she does long-distance learning, will she still be able to receive the college credits? Yes, that is our understanding right now. Our college partners have been working very closely with Mr. Bell and our counselors about that. How will the lab work tied to college classes be completed? Credits and grades given. I'll need to look into the lab work for the colleges, but I can tell you that for our Regents-based classes, the labs do not need to be taking place in a physical environment. We can be doing remote digital labs to meet the 1,200-minute requirement for science. How long is remote learning going to take place? It'll be available until we can ensure that the safety of our students and staff are there to get them back. Will children be able to do remote learning if sick or on quarantine? Absolutely. Our teachers are all preparing to be able to offer their curriculum for the students that choose the blended model if they need to be in a remote situation. Will children be able to sign out Chromebooks, laptops, if they do not have access to computers all the times? Yes, devices will be available as they were in the spring, and we'll be doing checkouts for them. And multiple Chromebooks can go home to families as well. How can my child connect personally with the teacher if they have problems with a subject? The best method is going to be for you to email the teachers, but also realize that the teachers are teaching during the day, and they may not be able to get to email responses until their planning periods or after school hours. So if there's not an immediate response, just be patient and they'll get back to you. If you do not hear back from a teacher for an extended period of time, again, reach out to your building principal. How long do you expect 2 days a week learning to last? For a semester, the whole year? Again, that's going to be dependent upon how our community and our schools can respond to this pandemic. If we can keep the occurrence and transmission rates down, perhaps we'll be into students being in class on a more regular basis than 2 days a week. Okay, the question: my daughter's in second grade. We have committed to remote learning. Would love to know how her day will be structured. We do not want her sitting in front of a screen all day. There'll be very specific information on each grade level coming out from the principal's office over the next couple of weeks. We're finalizing our plans and putting together structures and working with our teachers to make sure that there's a consistent protocol being followed and the messaging is the same. How will the district ensure that students who are distance learning obtain the same quality education as the students who are in the classroom? It's our expectation as a district and our expectation as teachers to make certain that all the high quality experiences can be provided within reason and what's practicable in an online environment as it would be in person. Our hope is to be able to create live opportunities for our students that are remote learners to make sure that they have real-time experiences back and forth with their teachers. It will be different. We cannot, I will be honest with you that we cannot replicate what can be done in a classroom on an online environment, but we're going to do the best that we possibly can. Will the district supply appropriate calculators to distance learning students? Yes, we will be. Lab materials for distance learning students, yes. Anything that is required for any of the activities in the classrooms, software, computers, and so forth, will be provided to students as if they were here in the building. Will students be required to participate in class at certain times while they're learning remotely? In some cases, there will be group meetings that will take place at the same time, but a vast majority of the work will be done asynchronously, which will mean when the children's schedule permits, they'll be able to work with that. Okay, some questions about all of the teachers actually teach the required material. It's our expectation that teachers who are professional and take great pride in making sure that the education is provided at the highest of levels. Will there be time to bring school supplies and meet the teachers before school starts? Lockers, again, are not going to be utilized to store lots of materials there. However, supply drop-off will take place at each of our buildings. There will be a 5th grade orientation, as well as I'd mentioned earlier, a 9th grade and also kindergarten orientation over the course of the next week. Looking at some of these other questions. A lot of the same type of questions here. What's the plan if a child falls behind academically? Will there be extra help on remote learning days? Absolutely. Our intention is to be able to monitor students' progress on a weekly basis. The instruction will be different. It won't be lessons that are going 5 days a week, individual lessons, as much as it would be larger learning objectives. So depending if a child's at home or if they might be in a blended model, we'll be able to make sure those objectives are met more on a weekly basis than perhaps daily sets of objectives that as in years past. Will distance learning days need to be based on schedules, or will families have opportunities for adjustments due to childcare needs? There will be a certain amount of flexibility to take into account the parents' work schedules, take into childcare responsibilities. We're going to be doing everything in our power to try to work with families to make sure the needs of all these are being met. In the event that you find your individual circumstances unique, again, reach out to your building principal, explain it to them so that we can make sure that open lines of communications and accommodations can be made. Will elementary kids stay in their classroom throughout the day to minimize the increase of contact with others in the building? We are going to work very hard to keep our elementary students in what's called cohorts, so keeping the same group of students together. We're going to try and bring our specials into the classroom. The students will stay together, and we're going to do our best not to have the students commingling with others as much as practicable. Will teachers be required to use parent portal? Yes, they will be. And they'll be expected to update their materials for the parents. Now, who do we report if a teacher is not using the parent portal? Again, I would ask that you please reach out to your building principal and let them know about that. Lots of similar questions here. Is there a date in which we will set to reevaluate and potentially change plans for remote learning and in-class learning? We're going to be monitoring the data on a weekly basis and get recommendations from the Department of Health and Department of Education. If we get the all clear for this zone to start bringing some more students back and we can work that out in a safe way, we're going to do that. When will teachers' names be released for elementary school? And will we be notified how many kids will be in the classrooms? I think it's safe to assume in the elementary school, student class sizes will be likely somewhere between 8 and 14 maximum, probably closer to 8 to 10. And our teachers' names will be determined once we finalize our plans, which will likely take place the week of August 24th. How can parents be confident that their students are receiving district-approved curriculum and not miscellaneous Google searched items from the internet? Okay. Our teachers are monitored. The curriculum is monitored by our director of curriculum as well as our building principals. If you believe that your child's not getting the core curriculum as required, please again notify your school principal. New York State data and guidelines change frequently, and every school decision will be continually reassessed and reevaluated. Why aren't parents being given the same opportunity to reevaluate their situation and adjust regarding to having to commit to a full virtual learning option until January 25th? In order for us to be able to plan our class sizes, our master schedules, we need to know how many students are going to be physically in the building and how many students we have to be able to plan for 100% remote. We believe, as is most districts, the semester break is the logical time for us to make those transitions. If you have a unique situation, I encourage you to please reach out to the building principal and explain your situation, and we'll work with you as best we can. The question about seniors in college classes, I think we're all set there. There's a question, if I start my child in the blended learning plan or the hybrid plan and you have health and safety concerns, can you move to the remote learning? Yes. If you're in the blended model and wish to go remote, you can do that. If you're in remote and want to come back to the blended learning situation, that's going to be a little bit more challenging for us prior to the semester break. But again, if you have a unique set of circumstances, reach out to your building principal and we'll work as best we can with you. If different days work out better for in-person learning, can we switch our child to those days? If they're scheduled for Monday and Tuesday, but Thursday and Friday work better for the schedule. We may be able to help with those accommodations on a very limited basis. We're trying to balance out the class sizes to make sure we can maintain social distancing. Wanting to be with their friends is not a reason for us to be able to shift around student schedules. I ask and encourage you all to, again, reach out to your building principals with any special circumstance. Okay, I'm going to move on to a couple other topics here around class sizes. How many kids per classroom? Based on spacing, up to 12 students will be the maximum number. Most of them should be substantially less than that. I mentioned that. If music art is being taught in the home room, why can't we turn those spaces into additional classrooms and create smaller class sizes, allowing for 4 to 5 day instruction? There's simply not enough square footage within our buildings to be able to shift things around, nor are there staffing levels to the place that we can actually provide enough classroom instruction. The space and the model just doesn't work for Roy-Hart. Will students be able to interact and talk with teachers with the at-home learning model? Yes, that's the case, and times will be scheduled for them to meet virtually with their teachers. What will the classrooms going to look like? I think what you're going to notice in our classrooms is that there's going to be half as many desks. Students will be spaced out. There won't be as many bookshelves and manipulatives and things like that in our elementary school as you're used to seeing. Things will be much more open in the learning. Will teachers be moving from classroom to classroom, or will children be moving around the building? Our intention at the elementary school is to keep our students in the same classroom and have the specials come to them. In the middle school, we're going to work to keep our teachers, students in the same location for their cores, but they will be moving towards their specials outside the classroom. All right, several questions about BOCES. If your child attends the Orleans Niagara BOCES, they are going to be having their reopening sessions today, August 17th at 7 p.m., and then tomorrow, August 18th at 3 and 7 p.m. If you go to the website, right on the front page, you'll see COVID information sessions. So if you choose to sit in, you're welcome to do that. But here's a couple of responses. How do you put BOCES, students still attend BOCES every day, and how are they going to be transported? Also, if they attend BOCES, can the parents drop them off at the BOCES Center in Medina? There are many, many different BOCES services that are provided to our students, and depending on those services, there's a slight difference in the way that they're being delivered. But right now, BOCES is open 5 days of instruction, and in the special ed situation, they're offering a full remote opportunities. The CTE program will be open 5 days a week. If you, as a family member, would like to be able to transport your child to the Medina Center, you'll be welcome to do that. There may be also limited parking and transportation opportunities for our high school students that are attending the CTE Center. Okay, I think I've answered some of those questions. The specific questions about remote learning opportunities, I don't believe there's going to be the commonplace, but there may be specific programs in which remote learning are going on. I would, again, reach out to the Orleans Niagara BOCES and attend one of their sessions if you have specific questions about specific programs. Okay. As far as busing goes, we're working on a plan right now and haven't finalized it, but that will allow for all of our students that need transportation from home to the BOCES and back to take place, even if they are on a remote learning day. So, for example, on Monday and Tuesday, if a child's last name goes A to K, they'll be on site. They'll attend their classes. They'll ride the shuttle from here to the BOCES, and then at the end of the day, the BOCES will be returning the students through what we call zone runs to get them students home directly. On Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, those students will be able to be transported by the BOCES. We'll be finalizing those plans and getting that information out in the next 2 weeks or so. Okay, art, music, and physical education. Do the students still participate in band and gym? We will be providing music options for our students. We are still working through the logistics right now of what the guidelines are telling us of 12-foot spacing and wearing masks. And we're trying to determine which locations and what's practicable for us to be able to deliver those programs. We will be doing certain specials of music and band and orchestra online as well. They will be receiving their credits and their instruction in those special areas. Okay. Singing is cited often as a very high-risk activity. Will music classes be considered mask required for kids to prevent droplet dispersion? Strongly recommend either no singing plan for music classes or else requiring mask during singing. That's currently our thinking as well and the guidance that we've been receiving. Can parents opt out of music class or singing if their child, if not? Again, reaching out to your building principals, we can opt out of some of the choral groups and you can receive your music credits in other ways. So again, reach out specifically by grade level to your building principal. There will be no contact activities for physical education classes. That is the plan moving into the new school year. What are the expectations for specials for students on their virtual days? Respectfully speaking, meeting the demands of specials and academics during the spring was a lot to keep up with. Yeah, we appreciate that a great deal, and we're doing our best right now to make accommodations so that both the academic and the specials for the students can be met. Okay, kind of winding down on time here, but I've got a few other areas that I want to touch base on. If sports are able to start, but we are still only 2 days a week, how will athletes be able to participate when they don't drive and parents work? Right now, athletics are not taking place. We're going to be reevaluating them on the 21st of September. And if we do believe that athletics are coming back, we'll make sure that we provide the transportation for our students and make reasonable accommodations for that. Accountability, tests, and Regents exams. Attendance is going to be taken each and every day through a check-in form with our students. Assignments will be graded as they were prior to closure last year. And students will be accountable for their work completion and participation. These are all things that we've been working on over the course of the summer and making sure the expectations and the accountability systems are consistent across the district. Question is, what will a typical day look like? Our in-person days during the blended model will be much like you've experienced prior to closure last year. Students will move through their classes and their specials. There will be set schedules for our for the Wednesdays and for the days that remote learning will be taking place. Those will be dependent upon the grade level and building levels, and will be communicated in the very near future for families to see what that's going to look like. So a great question. I try to schedule my future doctor's appointments for days my children are on virtual learning, but if they are already scheduled on an in-person day, can we still do their missed classes virtually, or are they considered absence that day? There'll be plenty of opportunities for students to maintain their classwork. And again, those special circumstances, communicate with your teachers, and if necessary, your building principals to make sure that those needs are being met. There was a questions, what about substitutes? And if a teacher's in quarantine or not going to be there. We have several certified teachers, and we have substitutes that we've just reappointed. We'll be going through our training for them so they understand the COVID protocols as well as all their school procedures, and we will be utilizing them as appropriate throughout the course of the school year. Okay. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I've got here for today. I think that's it. Let me see now what we may have any questions that may have come during this time frame here. Okay, a couple of questions that came while this session was running. Is there going to be any kind of training in policies and procedures relating to COVID-19 for substitutes per diem employees who typically are not present for any in-service? Okay. Yes, there will be. There will be a letter going out in the course of the next week or so that will be going to each of our substitutes. We'll be providing them with the same online training for the mandated training that has to take place, as well be an orientation and process that will be taken care of at each building level specific to the elementary, middle, and high school's needs. What will you do for children who speak quietly and are shy because it's hard to hear behind the mask? This is new for all of us. We're going to be learning. We're going to be working with it. Our teachers do a phenomenal job of establishing baselines and developing relationships with students. And one of the nice things with the blended model is class sizes will be much smaller, which will allow for teachers to give additional time and attention to the needs of all students. Okay, so that's all that I have right now, specific to the questions that were posed. I would encourage everyone, again, if you have additional questions, send them to us. We'll be looking at any new questions for the session that will take place at 6 p.m. Today on Monday, the 17th of August, as well as tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. on August 18th. I hope that I've been able to answer some questions. I'm sure there are still many in your mind. Please keep an eye on the website, monitor our reintroduction plan folder for additional information, and be looking for information coming from your building principals in the next couple of weeks. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.